Hello fellow collectors and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at a few of these page punchers from McFarlane Toys, and basically what they are is a little 3-inch action figure packed in with a comic book, and I'm assuming it's just a way to get people, more into comics. They all come with a number 1 of an issue associated with that character, which is kind of a cool idea. I do applaud them for that. If you guys know me at all, I usually tend to stick to 4-inch figures, 1/18 scale stuff. And especially for DC, Spin Master has kind of been filling that, and they've done a pretty great job so far, but that line has really kind of gotten stagnant, just kind of, multiple repaints of Batman and not really any other characters. So when these first kind of came on the scene, I kind of felt like my DC quota was being met, and I didn't really feel the need to these. Like I said, I usually do stick to 4-inch stuff, but I do dabble in 6-inch, 3-inch, 2.5 with Mission Fleet, stuff like that. So I kind of just felt like I didn't really need these. I think this is like wave 3 or maybe even 4 at this point. I'm not 100% sure. And when I saw these, when they first kind of came on the scene, the first wave had the heavy hitters that you would expect. Superman, Batman, I think Flash maybe was in that first wave. And I kind of saw them in store, and I'll throw some pics up here, but they just didn't really look that great. They kind of looked like unfinished, a little grainy almost with the plastic. And I don't know, they just kind of didn't really look appealing to me, and so I kind of let those go. But I saw these in the store at Target, and the figures look better in person. I mean, one, I'm a huge Batman Beyond fan, so that kind of jumped out at me right away. And with the Blue Beetle movie coming out, I think it's next month already, I'm kind of interested in Blue Beetle right now. And the Lex suit just kind of looked neat. So the other thing that really helped was at the time, these were all half off at Target. So they're usually $10 a piece, and they were down to $5. So given that it was kind of a new cast of characters that I was really interested in, and the fact that they were half price, I decided to go ahead and grab these. So taking a look, seeing if they're worth it. Do they really fit in my collection? Do I need DC stuff in this scale? But with Spin Master kind of, I don't want to say dropping the ball, that seems too harsh, but I'm kind of getting bored with that stuff because they're just not really putting out anything I'm interested in right now. So I decided to give these a go. So as you can see, they each come with a comic book here. So we have Batman Beyond Neo Year #1. Now, I don't know if these are like promotional copies of these comics or if they're exactly the same book that you would find in your local store. I also don't know when the series started. So, if I read this and I love it, I don't know if they're already up to 15 or if they haven't even really started yet. This is kind of a promotional thing. So we'll see how that goes. This one doesn't really have a name on it. I'm assuming maybe the name is underneath this insert here. So I'll have to let you know about that one. The back of them all just have the DC logo. Not really anything more to that. And then this is Forever Evil, the New 52. So I can tell you that I know the New 52 is over. This is #1 in the New 52. So this book is probably several years old at this point. So probably not something I'm going to run out and continue reading if I like it. So if you're trying to get people into comics, I feel like using old stuff is kind of weird. But maybe they're just using stuff that's been lying around. I don't know. But I'm almost positive the New 52 is long since over. I don't follow DC books as much as I do Marvel and other stuff, but I'm pretty sure that they killed the New 52. If I'm wrong, feel free to tell me in the comments. So I'm going to go ahead, get these out of here, and we'll take a closer look at everything. Okay, so before we move on to the figures, I just wanted to kind of go over the comics real quick. And something else I did want to point out, the clamshell packaging I thought was going to be impossible to open because I'm used to packaging like this kind of being sealed all the way around, but it's actually really nice. Just taped in a few spots, and then once you cut the tape, it just kind of pops open, and it just has these kind of like little things that clip into place. So it was actually really easy to open, which was really nice. And then here are the 3 comics that we get. So we have Batman Beyond Neo Year, I apologize. And I looked in the back here, and it looks like this was published last year. So if you see, it says originally published as Neo Year #1, 2022. So again, if you wanted to keep going with this, probably not too difficult. I'm sure it's pretty decently along, but maybe you could find a trade. We also get Blue Beetle Graduation Day, which is a limited 1 of 6. So at this point, this was also from 2022, and I'm assuming they would have collected a trade with everything all together, which kind of makes this individual issue superfluous. But my favorite is, I was correct, that New 52 is from 2013. If we take a look in the back here, yeah, copyright 2013. So, hey, this is a 10-year-old comic, and, you know, I mean, it's a thick comic, and it's got some cool visuals and whatnot, but I don't know, I just feel like if you're trying to get people into comics, it would make more sense to give them more recent stuff, but that's just me. Again, I'm not really buying these for the comics, so I don't really care about that aspect of it. I'm really just more interested in the figures, so let's take a closer look at them. So we have our 3 figures here. I guess I'll start with Blue Beetle. I'll move these 2 back. He actually looks pretty good. Honestly, like I was saying before, when I first looked at these figures, I didn't really think they looked all that great. But, you know, this feels a little bit nicer. Maybe they've gotten better as they've gone on. You can kind of see some large gaps there. You can see how, like, this isn't 100% kind of connected to the body. And there's that large gap there. You can kind of see my finger behind. But you just kind of have to push that back in. Now, this, honestly, it might be like a ball joint thing. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know how that's connected. The shoulders do have kind of a ball joint type functionality. So they can spin around, but they do have a little bit of a hinge out to the side as well. So I'm assuming that's kind of a ball joint thing. The head's on a ball joint, mostly for looking side to side, but you can look up ever so slightly and look down ever so slightly. But the paint on the mask, I think, looks good. The one little antenna back here is a little crooked on mine, but the paint applications look pretty good. The articulation's decent. They did paint kind of all the way around, which I appreciate. The legs can kick pretty far forward and pretty far back. I mean, that's not really humanly possible. That would hurt a lot. But the only thing, like I said, for this one, it does kind of have that, you know, that gap there. And again, you can kind of push it up. I don't know if it's meant to be able to move like that, if it's kind of a super tiny ball joint like there, or because this one doesn't really seem to have it. So hopefully that doesn't break over time. But you also get a waist swivel, which I was not expecting. So that's kind of nice. So nothing in the legs, you know, the ankles, the knees, all that's solid. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points of articulation. Nothing in the wrists or elbows. But I mean, they're just little 3-inch figures, and I think they're kind of fun. Pretty decently painted. Next up, we'll move on to Lex. Again, really nicely painted. You have the detail kind of throughout the chest armor there. A little bit here on the belt. Now, I'm assuming his head is supposed to move side to side, but his does not want to, and I really don't want to break it. I'm sure it's just kind of stuck on there. Maybe some paint or something is preventing that from moving, but his head's not moving anywhere. But he does have the out to the side. Again, it's not a huge out to the side, but it is a little bit. And then, of course, you can move around. Now, he has the shoulder pad here, so it's not going to be able to go all the way around. But he's got the waist swivel, and then he's got the kick. He can't kick as far forward, but he can kick pretty far back. It's weird to me that they can kick further back than they can forward, because that's not how humans bend. But overall, you know, I think it's a pretty decent little figure, pretty nicely painted. Few good points of articulation there. My favorite of the 3 is Batman Beyond here, just because I'm a huge Batman Beyond fan. You kind of don't see his mouth. I know in the cartoon you could see his mouth, but I guess they've kind of gone for a more traditional just mask here where you wouldn't really see his mouth. But the eyes are painted. The chest here is painted nicely. It's got that same ball joint for the head. He's got the arm that can kind of go out to the side as well as rotate forward. He does have the waist swivel, although his really doesn't seem to want to move as much as everybody else. And then he can kick forward. Now, as you can see, he's got these wings here on the back as a cape. If you're familiar with Batman Beyond, he doesn't wear the wings like this as a cape. They kind of, almost like Spider-Man, they kind of go between, like, from the abdomen to the arm, and he kind of uses them as wings to glide. And I understand why that's not really possible here with the limited articulation, because the arms can't... I mean, his arms get a little bit further out than some of the others, but still not as much as you would need. And I thought for a second when I first took it out of the packaging that maybe, you know, these would slide, like maybe they're kind of pegged in and you could just slide them up. But no, it's one solid piece. Now, you can pop it off, as I've done here. I believe it was glued in, but it wasn't so tightly glued in that with a little bit of wiggling, I was able to just pop it off. I see what they're going for here, but this is definitely one piece, and it's a very flimsy, plastic, kind of rubbery plastic, and I just don't need it. I mean, I prefer the look of Batman kind of just like this without the wings. If he could have the wings out to the side, I would like it, but this kind of half measure to me, wasn't really doing anything for me. And if I want to pop them back on, it absolutely can. They just kind of pop right back in there, and they'll stay. I mean, they're not glued in anymore, but they're not going to fall out at the drop of a hat. So that way, you can kind of have them with the cape-like wings. But if you're like me and you just kind of like the look of them without the wings, you can go ahead and just kind of wriggle them off. They're just kind of lightly glued in there. And it's nice because, you can still put them in, so it's not a huge problem. But I definitely like the look of him without the wings. So again, I see what they were going for, and I'm sure they have limitations, but I would have liked either this to kind of be like all the way out to the side if they were going to do something. Having them at this kind of 45-degree angle, I feel like it's not really doing any favors for anybody. But they're decent little figures. Like I said, decent articulation, decent paint applications. They look pretty good. So I'm generally happy with them. I'm going to bring in some other kinds of figures to do a little size comparison. So as I said earlier, I've been buying the Spin Master, Batman, and DC line. So here's a figure from that line. As you can see, definitely not going to work together. He's a full inch taller than them, with him being 4-inch and these being 3-inch. So just wanted to do that size comparison. Here is a Star Wars Mission Fleet figure, which is 2.5 inches tall. So again, a little bit shorter. Maybe these could work together, but it would be a little weird. What I think these are going to work best with, kind of most akin to an Imaginext figure. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a Batman Imaginext figure handy, but I did have this Power Ranger one handy, just to show you that they're roughly the same size, and Imaginext did a ton of DC stuff, specifically Batman stuff as well. So these figures probably could work with some of the vehicles and playsets from that line. So if you could find yourself like an Imaginext Batcave or something for cheap somewhere, it probably could make a pretty decent display piece with some of these figures because they are about the same size. They have roughly the same articulation points, so they probably could fit and sit into most of those vehicles as well. So that might work out well. But yeah, these are basically the same size as like Imaginext stuff. So at the end of the day, are these worth it? I'm going to say yes and no. Having gotten these for half price at Target, yes, I think they're totally worth it. Getting these for $5 a piece I think is pretty fair. They're nice little figures, pretty well articulated, nicely painted. I think overall for $5 a piece, they're cool little figures. Now, paying, $10, $12 a piece for these sets, I don't think so. I honestly would drop the comic book aspect of this line. If you want to make cool little figures, I think maybe go to blind boxes or maybe sell them in like 3-packs or 4-packs, things like that. You could even make your own vehicles and playsets to add to the line. I think something like that could be a lot of fun. And I understand that they're trying to get more people interested in comics. I just don't think you're going to do that with, 10-year-old comics. Now, granted, only one of the 3 was 10 years old. The other 2 were only a year old. But I just feel like, if you want to make a line of tiny little articulated figures, I think you're better off just dropping the comic aspect of it. I don't think they're doing crazy well, which is why they're probably half price at Target. So maybe if they reinvent the line a little bit and kind of just get rid of the comic aspect and just kind of commit to making fun little figures, I think they could be neat. I think they could be a lot of fun. Like I said, introducing vehicles and playsets I think could be another aspect to this, and I think they could be pretty neat. Or even just blind bags. If they wanted to just move to blind bags and say, hey, we're putting out a series, there's 7 different ones, get some, we're going to do them as blind bags. Now, I'm not a huge fan of blind bags because you end up with duplicates and stuff like that. But, people could trade or things like that. You could sell your duplicates, whatever you want to do. I think that's probably the way to go. I would just drop the comic aspect of it because I just don't think packing in 10-year-old comics or even 1-year-old comics, is the way to really get people interested in comics. I mean, we have Free Comic Book Day and other things like that. So, yes, if you can find them for half price at Target, I think they're worth it. I think they're fun. For little $5 figures, I think they're neat. But yeah, paying full price for them, I definitely wouldn't. Because I definitely, at least for me personally, I don't care about the comics that are being packed into these. They're kind of old, irrelevant. And also, I like DC stuff, but I'm really not following the current books. And again, this is just me personally. I know a lot of people do. But I still like the characters. I just usually tend to enjoy them in animation or film or what other media I consume. I just don't keep up with the DC books, but I love the characters, and so I would love to just kind of collect these little figures, some other way that's cheaper. Like, I don't want to have to keep paying for comic books I don't want, is basically what I'm trying to say. Again, it kind of makes me maybe want to go back and see if I can find some of the earlier releases. But again, I don't know if they're the same quality. I'll have to get some and maybe do a comparison. But it kind of just seems to me that they've kind of improved as they've gone along. So I don't really know if it's worth going back and getting those earlier figures, because maybe they're not really up to snuff. I don't know. I guess I'll have to get one and just let you know. In any case, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Have you been collecting this line from the beginning? If you have some of those earlier figures, let me know. Did they, are they good? Did they kind of stand the test of time, I guess is what I'm trying to say? Or were they a little bit cheaper and the line's kind of gotten better as it's gone? If you have any insight into that, I'd love to hear from you. So please let me know in the comments below. But please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, thanks so much for watching.